So we recently wrote a paper together called the Digital Nomad, which is available on Hewlett-Packard Enterprise website. Tell us your perspective about this digital transformation and how it affects the persona, the nomad, as we call it.
Well, I think people think of digital as primarily the industrial era on tech steroids, just a faster version of industry. But I think it's an anthropological step change. You know, before the industrial era, we were highly social, we were chasing our lunch across the savannah, and mobile, I should say, but we had to collaborate, otherwise lunch would eat us, so we were social, we were mobile. Our work and life was integrated because if we hadn't eaten for several days and lunch appeared on the horizon at 6:01, we wouldn't just leave it till 9 o'clock the next day. So very integrated work and life. We had to be creative, we had to make decisions in real time, and productivity was what we were focusing on. 10 hours at the office chasing food and coming home with no food was not a good day at the office. These characteristics, if you like, were suppressed during the industrial era. We had to turn up to the factory, so goodbye mobile. We weren't supposed to talk to each other because we were labor and paid by the hour. We weren't allowed to make decisions or be creative because we were working off an ops manual. We were cogs in the corporate machine, so to speak. And so for me, the digital economy is almost the vines of nature pushing through the corporate car park, and we're returning to our true humanity. So the digital economy for me is basically an anthropological step change we're going through where we return to our true nature.
When you look at digital transformation with that technology being enabled, how is that correlating with this anthropological direction or behavior from the worker and from customers, from clients of the organizations that we might be dealing with?
Well, if we look at this in an IT context, we have the concept of application programming interfaces where general services are used to provide specific services. Well, I think the API should be anthropological performance interfaces. So we need to build our IT systems around humanity, if you like, the social, mobile, etc. piece. And I think if you do that successfully, basically you have nature as a business partner.
I agree. I mean, we see out there mobility being a key trend, and a lot of companies understood that, and some are startups. So we call it the idea economy, which is creating that economical revolution. And those 3 million mobile apps which are out there are all either inventing a new business model or challenging a business model from another company. However, the interesting statistic is that 90% of those mobile applications get deleted after 10 days. So we need to think about how can we have a mobile application or engagement with our employees or customers that is constantly looking for the experience that we provide, the collaboration you were talking about, and improving on it. It was interesting to see that some of the applications that I have on my smartphones say that they are upgrading their code every 2 weeks. What an agility this is requiring for the modern organization.
Yes, and I think mobility is much more than mobile devices or mobile apps. It's mankind's tendency to want to be mobile. So how do you cater for the worker that needs to be mobile? And you might say, well, why should we cater for the worker? We pay them, they'll do what they're told. But there is a global talent shortage, and actually the power axis is shifting towards the employee or the talent. And you can't just wave big sums of money at them now, because increasingly they're looking for greater purpose in their work, almost like a path to mastery, so to speak. So organizations need to provide a stimulating working environment where basically the worker can come and pursue their art. And they will work with you if you provide the most stimulating environment. If not, they will go elsewhere. So you might say the job of the employer is to help the employee along their path to mastery.
That's true. It's all about engagement, making sure that the employee is engaged, because as we see, they tend to, if they don't like an application or what they're getting, the information out of the applications, they tend to disengage from that. Isn't that true also for customers which are engaging with larger organizations? It's all about the engagement that we can have with them, and And it's not because we put a lot of money that those customers will engage with us or those employees will engage with us. So it's really the ecosystem and the experience, the digital experience that we're providing to those employees and to those clients or customers.
No, absolutely. I think customers, the greatest gift we can give customers to some extent is to give them some of their life back, to enable them to do things quicker, to do it in less clicks and so on. And the more efficient that experience is, the more dovetailed it is throughout the whole, if you like, customer journey.
What's interesting is that the workplace is not a physical place anymore. With all of that technology available, that's enabling that engagement or mobility that you were talking about, in the following the employees and the customer in their behavior.
We have a tendency, or a natural tendency, to be social. Now, you might say the industrial era, maybe even capitalism to some extent, has made us behave as if we're totally in control of our own destiny. We almost don't need our neighbours. We don't need to be part of a pack. But the reality is that we do. And therefore, collaboration technologies in particular, and we do emphasize social media, but really it's about collaboration. That's where it's at. And you might even say that the IT industry itself is kind of dying in a way, but the phoenixes that are coming out of the ashes are the information industry, the sort of analytics, and the collaboration industry. Those are the two hot areas.
Actually, most of if you look at the top 10 mobile apps, just to look at mobility, they're all about collaboration. I think one or two might be more geared towards social, but it's fundamentally all about collaboration. Now, taking this into consideration, an IT organization also needs to think about, how do I engage while providing security, while ensuring privacy of that customer or employee, but providing also that layer of security for my organization? In delivering the contents, whether it's in a workplace, virtual or physical, or in a mobile environment, what is the information that I provide in a concise ways, in different form factors? That might be a tablet, a phone, a laptop, a hybrid, or a large screen. So how do I convey that information in a compelling way so that the employee or client can be engaged with whatever I want him to engage on? So the link to big data, providing big data in a compelling way. It's not about dumping data on the individual, but providing the right information at the right place, at the right time, in a secure way to that persona. And that is really driving digital transformation or digital experience for that persona.
Yeah, if I kind of bring it all together, organizations, IT functions in particular, need to get their act together in terms of their IT systems, their data management, and their sensor management. So as the Internet of Things comes on board, we're going to get access to a lot more data. Out of that, let's call it all big data, we need to generate big insight. And that big insight comes through the analytics layer, so to speak. But having great insight and not acting on it is no good. So you need to have a kind of collaboration layer around that to allow great decisions to be made by groups of people. And from that, you might say, comes big wisdom and differentiated customer experiences.
Right. And then all of that has to be delivered, and the delivery mechanism is the cloud. So the cloud is the other side of the same coin as the workplace or mobility. It's all integrated, right? Cloud, we talk about big data, we talk about security. All of that has to be integrated to deliver a great digital experience.
No, absolutely. And I think one of the big challenges, particularly with security, is that you can have a great Alcatraz security architecture for your organization, but if you have no customers or no employees because they find the whole thing too turgid to work with, then you have a problem. The other aspect of the digital economy is that the perspective you have on risk. So you might say risk management in the digital economy actually means the acquisition of risk as opposed to the elimination and suppression of risk. That's a big one for the CFO to get their head around. So you've got to develop a greater risk appetite, yet be compliant, but you've got to balance that with being fast and loose and being responsive to the market. So I think over the next few years we will see some loosening in respect of governance and compliance, because that's the price you've got to pay to keep up with the market.
Some of the organizations that really internalize that are maybe a best practice, deliver a plan. They build a plan, and we partner with them to actually construct that plan, assess where they are today, identify where they need to be tomorrow, thinking about the different dimensions of the workplace, the digital experience they want to provide to their employees and customers. Think about how the cloud is going to play a role into it. Think about the security component and the big data that leads to wisdom. What is that wisdom that is going to generate that engagement for the employee? Do you have, without naming companies, some examples of such conversations? Are those conversations relevant with your engagements with the CIOs or lines of business?
Well, I'm being brought into businesses to advise boardrooms on how they capitalize on the digital opportunity, and at the same time how they respond in terms of their employees and their brand and so on. And this is quite a challenge, particularly for established organizations, because the problem is when you're an established organization, when you've got something to lose, your innovation is going to be incremental at best. You won't go too far away from the herd. That's why cars have really changed very little since they were first invented. Yet new startups, who have got nothing to lose, they can go for radical innovation. And they can follow the technology curve, which is exponential, whereas the rest of us are following the incremental. And it's that differentiation that's causing a problem, and that's going to cause the traditional firms to basically lag behind and become irrelevant. However, even process cogs that haven't got an ounce of creativity in them, the typical employee in the kind of industrial factory, you can ask them to talk about or explore minor improvements in the processes and so on. So if you do this and do this frequently enough, you'll have, let's call it incremental innovation at pace. Over time, you will get radical innovation. So I think established organizations have two choices. One is get rid of all your industrial era process cog staff and bring in creatives, or incremental innovation at pace, which requires a complete redesign of how you manage the organization.
Ade, thank you very much.
You're welcome, Pierre.